There was an idea
to bring together a group of remarkable people.
To see if we could become something more.
So when they needed us, we could fight the battles
that they never could.
Y'all ever seen Rise of the Guardians? So Rise of the Guardians is this 2012 Dreamworks movie that I loved when I was a kid but haven't seen since. And one I think most people have a vague recollection of but either have never seen or similarly haven't seen in a long time. So the other day I was like, you know what, I'ma just rewatch this movie for the memes, have some fun, see what it's like, and yo, to my surprise, this movie rules. Genuinely compelling and impressive in many aspects, and today, I'ma tell you why, and try and convince you to either watch it for the first time, or give it another chance.
This is going to be epic!
So, what's it about again? Well, buckle up. It tells the story of Jack Frost, who awakes one day with memory loss and realizes that nobody can see him. And 300 years later, he's in the same position, but he can make it snow now. We're then introduced to the Guardians, a group consisting of Santa Claus, the Tooth Fairy, the Easter Bunny, and the Sandman, who kinda protect the children and just bring joy to all. But this is threatened by the boogeyman, Pitch Black. Jealous of the children's belief in the Guardians, he attempts to completely conceal their world in nightmares and shadow it in darkness. So Jack Frost must team up with the Guardians in order to discover why he's here in the first place and restore belief and hope within the universe. Now, that sounds insane, but the real journey of the film is about identity and finding your place and purpose in the world, told through the lens of Jack. With a lot of kids' films, their messaging can really be simplified down to just be yourself, cause everybody else is taken. So it's refreshing when certain stories focus on discovering and understanding yourself, and looking for what the film describes as your center. It obviously also touches on the power of belief, but the main takeaway is that of you have to face your fears in order to overcome them, and from there channel them into something completely new and hopeful, effectively visually portrayed through this contrast of nightmares and dreams. Come to think about it, there are many great visual metaphors in here to help greater communicate the themes of the film, as well as some pretty good jokes thrown in there as well.
Sandy, knock him out. Huh? With the dream sand, you Gumby.
So you got yourself a solid story and set of morals right there. Bada bing, bada boom. But why does this movie truly work so well in my opinion? Well, that comes down, I think, mainly thanks to this guy, director Peter Ramsey. Who is he, you may ask? Well, he went on to co-direct a little film known as, I don't know, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which is, I don't know, one of the best animated films of all time. And it's funny, because you can somewhat see little threads that would lead to part of his contribution in Into the Spider-Verse, but also I could just be reading too much into it. Anyway, so the direction here in Rise of the Guardians is truly sublime. Like, I was in awe of the look of this movie and its array of creative choices that had actually remained in my subconscious from watching it as a child and all came flooding back. The use of shadows for the character of Pitch, the visualization of Sandman's dreams, the kinetic energy of the camera work complementing the pace the Guardians move at. Ramsey's totally imaginative work on display here is so much fun to watch and really should be appreciated more. No better highlighted than in this incredibly exciting and entertaining sequence about a little less than halfway through the movie where all the Guardians are competing in who can collect the most teeth. Alongside Alexander Desplat's incredibly playful score, the scene is just perfectly storyboarded and paced and I can't get over how much I love it. And I'll touch on it more in a second, but for now let's focus on the animation. The animation is one of the best and worst aspects of the film. There are definitely moments and characters that haven't aged that gracefully, but for every weaker element visually, there are 5 times the amount of beautiful cinematic shots and whimsical world building and set pieces. Overall, this film is kind of visually stunning, and this is in part I think thanks to the help of Roger Deakins, who is, I don't know, the cinematographer behind Blade Runner 2049, Prisoners, Sicario, 1917, Skyfall, No Country for Old Men, so pretty big deal if you ask me. Deakins was a visual consultant on the movie, much like for WALL-E and the How to Train Your Dragon trilogy, advising in the lighting elements, which is why it looks incredible. Seriously, the look of the city scenes is insane and caught me so off guard. Like, if you have any interest in animation, you should probably study this movie. The worlds for each Guardian are so colourful and feel lived in. The mossy cobblestones for the Easter Bunny realm with these little weird ass eggs with legs waddling around. The Indian architecture inspired land of the Tooth Fairies. All help in contrast when Pitch Black enters and attempts to suck out all the colour. Both symbolically and literally, as the film gradually dons a colder colour palette as it progresses. But the animation is not only impressive in solely the environments and lighting, but also in just the movement of the characters. the way Jack Frost's flying is animated like he's genuinely being guided by the wind, or how he perches on certain ledges and is always bouncing on the balls of his feet. The franticness of both the Tooth Fairy and Easter Bunny matched by the continuous quick pans and zooms, or Santa Claus's noticeably weakened posture as kids begin to stop believing in the Guardians. These great little touches emphasize the passion that is undoubtedly all over this project. And you can't talk about this movie without mentioning the characters. I absolutely adore the character design of the Guardians, so it is no surprise they were in part shaped with the help of Guillermo del Toro, who is, I don't know, okay, I'm gonna stop doing that bit. But you know, he directed like Pan's Labyrinth and his stop motion Pinocchio, so he kinda knows about great character design. Like, think about it, even if you haven't seen the movie, when you just picture Jack Frost in general, this is probably the image that comes to mind. How crazy is that? Unless you picture that weird ass Michael Keaton movie, or Martin Short in the Santa Claus 3, The Escape Clause, then
there goes that theory.
But anyways, each Guardian is likeable and memorable, and this seems pretty base level but is a hurdle many kids' movies fall at, with characters either being insufferable as shit or completely exiting your brain 2 hours after watching the movie. Their own entertaining quirks and inventive powers are a highlight, and exactly why the Tooth Collection sequence works so well. The distinct and unique nature of each character all using their own strengths and abilities to compete for a goal, alongside Ramsey's electric direction, makes for just a totally creative and thrilling set piece. It's also a great way to engage us with these characters as a unit, and help understand their dynamics and attitudes. The voice acting all round is also pretty great. Celebrity voice casts can often work to a film's disservice, but here, I didn't even realise that Alec Baldwin was Santa Claus, and Chris Pine really gives everything to Jack Frost, and his portrayal is one of the reasons he makes for such a great, compelling character and protagonist. But obviously the best performance in the movie is that of Sandman. The joke here is that Sandman doesn't speak. But like, Hugh Jackman plays the freaking Easter Bunny. Come on now, more people should see this movie. But I think my favourite thing about Rise of the Guardians is that it takes itself so seriously. Yes, the movie where a Russian sword-wielding Santa Claus who uses snow globes to open up magic portals, for the most part, plays it straight. Now, why does this matter? Well, let's get real for a second, guys. I fear that the sense of childish innocence and sincerity we all possess at a young age is quickly becoming a shorter period in our lives, and a diminishing and decreasing part of culture in general. We're so quick to drop what we genuinely love or enjoy for a greater sense of acceptance or approval, or because we feel embarrassed about it. And that is so sad. We can see this somewhat mirrored in a lot of movies today that attempt to absolve themselves from any criticism in masking behind a deeply layered sense of irony or self-awareness, or swiftly undercutting any serious or poignant moment, to which we lose the pureness of what the artist truly intended. Think about it. How many times have you said something followed up by laugh out loud? Constantly placing down this culturally conditioned safety net of self-deprecation to hide ourselves behind because none of us can cope with the fear of ridicule. And I'm guilty of this too. But Rise of the Guardians totally rejects this concept. Rise of the Guardians is a prime example of why I have such a soft spot for Dreamworks animation. Sure, they got their fair share of stinkers, believe me, I know. But that's why their great films stand out even more. From the outside looking in, it would be easy to write some of these off when approaching them with a cynical perspective. But when you look a little closer, you can find something truly valuable. A dumb movie about an ogre and a donkey in a fairy tale land. No, a meaningful story of true beauty and self-acceptance. A dumb movie about a fat panda learning kung fu. Nay, an emotional tale of imposter syndrome, self-discovery and generational trauma. A dumb movie about a baby who's also a boss. Okay, that one was kinda shit, but what I'm trying to say is the fact that a movie called Rise of the Guardians, the most generic title I've ever heard with a goofy ass premise about the Avengers and mythical characters, treats itself with such thoughtfulness, is an example of pure artistry, perfectly capturing that sense of childlike wonder and earnestness that it explores, and I feel nowadays we are so quick to ignore or avoid, and that is the film's centre. Some may say Rise of the Guardians is the lamest shit they've ever seen, but to me, concealing what you truly feel or believe in or want to say and make, now that is the epitome of lame. So with that in mind, in my humble opinion, I can sincerely say that Rise of the Guardians is an underrated gem. Skadoosh.